Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Catie Scudera,
And I'm Jenna Crawford.
and we're the ministers serving First Parish in Needham, Unitarian Universalist. And we'd like to welcome you to our October 2021 couch conversation, where Jenna and I, in our respective Zoom rooms, on our respective couches, chat a little bit about the monthly theme at First Parish. We always have a theme that we weave into our Sunday services and lifespan religious exploration and small group ministry. And the theme in the month of October is legacy, which I think is great time. We've got All Souls coming up, well, Halloween, and then All Souls coming up. At the end of the month, this is also the 50th anniversary of the publication of the Pentagon Papers by our denominational publishing house, Beacon Press, which has left an incredible legacy about government transparency and militarism. I guess that one of the questions that I'm sitting with this month is how we as modern Unitarian Universalists are building our legacy moving forward. What foundations are we building now that in 50 years people might look back on and say, like, oh, right, that was a good thing those UUs did.
Right. I've been really interested in this question too, Reverend Catie. I've been reading this book by Paul Razor, Reclaiming Prophetic Witness, Liberal Religion in the Public Square, which I highly recommend to all our beloved UUs, because it's helped me think a lot about that question. Why is it important to claim UU identities specifically and not just like our justice affiliations or our why when we're in public, when we're demonstrating and performing our activism, why is it important to say that our Unitarian Universalism is what brings us into the public sphere? It talks a lot about how really a misunderstanding of the separation of church and state often, among some other things, often stops people short of claiming their UU identity when they're doing sacred activism. That misunderstanding being, oh, well, I can't mix politics and religion, but really the separation of church and state is about the legal right of a free people to freely live their faith, even in public, without fear of government coercion. So it's a check on the state, not on the churches or on religious people. So just thinking more about and how that how it adds a different dimension to the conversation to say I'm on the side of climate justice or immigrant justice, not just because of my sort of political liberalism, but because of theological reasons, like how important it is to add the theological dimension to the conversation, to say, I believe in helping Afghani resettlement because my UU faith calls me to believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all people and to work to make that vision a reality. So it's been a lot of really awesome things to think about in this book. And yeah, just thinking a lot about, how can our community at First Parish, when we're going to a demonstration, be wearing a First Parish or a UU t-shirt, or, having conversations with people about it is our UU values that bring us to this space. And here are my theological reasons for being here, is really important. It's about showing up, and then also about our Unitarian Universalism, and that they're both important, not just the first part.
Yes, absolutely. I think about even just that we actually try at First Parish to have folks, if there's a demonstration or if there's going to be in the old days, pre-COVID, we would go knock on the state house doors of various representatives and state senators, that we try to organize ourselves as a UU unit. Or even at Pride, we would often link up with another congregation and march, or we would all hang out together to watch the parade. And part of that is about demonstrating, we're here because we are Unitarian Universalists. We both chose this faith because of the ethics that we held in our hearts, but this faith challenges us to grow those ethics more deeply, and to act them out in our communities, more so than we would have done without the support of the community. But it's not just about our social and environmental justice work, even though that's part of our covenants at First Parish, and it's very important to us as UUs to build a better world with our partners and allies. Um, it's also just about our like everyday conduct, thinking about that kind of legacy, that even within I think about the family unit, the household unit, that our UU values prompt us to show respect by asking, like in our relationships, for checking in for consent on all sorts of issues, for making sure we honor another person, but also our own boundaries and our own needs, to try to create equality and equity between with romantic partners or friendships, or between parents and children, or with nibblings, nieces, nephews, and nibblings, that whatever context we're in our household or with our neighbors. So I think about now I'm a parent. Often, like, folks who are in my orbit, who are also parents, either because we knew each other a long time ago and now we all have kids, all my old friends, or folks that I meet. We literally meet so many families while we're walking our dogs, is they're out with their stroller and we're out with the stroller, and we're like, hey, did you have a pandemic baby? Hi. And I think about, we have a lot of conversations about like, hey, like my kid is doing this thing or that thing. How might I guide them to not do that thing, or to do this thing instead? And I recognize that I actually should more often than I do. Say like, well, I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and in our values and ethics that are expressed through our principles and our sources and programs like Our Whole Lives, this is how I'm trying to parent my child. This is sort of the foundational ethics of how I interact with her. It's out of my faith. And if you want to also have your kid, you have to be respectful and ask for consent and care about justice in the world and the earth. Maybe you should check out a local UU congregation. But that is like showing up, even for me as the minister of the church. I mean, I get asked to go to a lot of things in town because I'm the UU minister. Like, we get a lot of emails like this, like, oh, can you come to this event? Do you want to be on this committee? Da, da, da. But even for me, I recognize there's room for me to grow. And when I'm saying like, well, I do these things because of my ethics and values, to remind folks like, actually, there's a theological grounding for that. And that theological grounding is our historic Unitarian Universalist faith. Yeah, I'm reminded of our spiritual ancestor, Reverend William Ellery Channing, who said that the great end in religious instruction is not to stamp our minds upon the young, but to stir up their own, which I love. I love that quote. And that would not, like, I wouldn't know about that if I weren't UU. That probably wouldn't have come across my path, but that is part of how I'm raising my daughter. So there's my thought that actually our UU legacy can happen through our work in the church to create greater justice, but also on a smaller scale, just in our own households and neighborhoods, in the way that we interact with other people, in the way we bring up young people in our communities. And it's actually okay to tell people that, oh yeah, it's because I'm UU.
Right. And that, it just reminds me of the tension between, just like we sometimes misunderstand the separation of church and state, we misunderstand that idea that we're like not a proselytizing tradition.
Yeah.
And but it's important to talk about that our UU faith calls us to be in certain places or to act in certain ways. So Reverend Catie and I want to hear from you all. In what ways is your UU faith calling you this month? In what places and spaces could you talk more about your UU faith, and sort of make connections for why you've shown up in your UU theology? And so we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at internministerandminister@uuneedham.org. or you can comment on this video wherever you're watching. And we're so excited to see you next month. For the month of November, we'll be thinking more about covenant. So until then, be well, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.